of this misconduct, as we've discovered, because your article actually specifically mentions those misconducts, including a Kumul Petroleum employee, as you mentioned, directing a contract to a company owned by Wapu Sonk, who is in fact, as we've mentioned, the CEO of Kumul Petroleum, and awarding another contract to a senior member of staff at Kumul Petroleum, and then using a rental property in Brisbane that is owned by an individual who has recently received contracts from Kumul Petroleum. So coupled with broader concerns about governance, can you break down these different layers of alleged corruption and how they connect?
Again, what it seems like has been happening is that there are corporate structures in Australia, companies set up by Wapu Sonk that have been set up to allow him to make money on the side. To put it in crude terms, it looks like there's alleged kickbacks that are occurring, and these companies are the recipient of those alleged kickbacks. That may be one of the scenarios. What the paperwork shows is that the power that Wapu Sonk has as the boss of Kumul is being potentially used to feed contracts to these companies in Australia that he secretly owns. But the use of the multi-million-dollar property in Brisbane, why is Wapu Sonk, how can you think it's appropriate that he reside in a property owned by an Australian businessman who's seeking to win contracts from Kumul Petroleum in PNG, and which has already won contracts from Kumul Petroleum in PNG? That's a clear conflict of interest. It's a private commercial relationship that raises questions of corruption. Now, I'm not saying corruption has definitely occurred in respect of this property, but it may have. And we need to know why, or what are the circumstances through which Wapu Sonk got use of this house? Is he paying for it? Is it a gift? If he's not paying for it, why not? If he is paying for it, is he paying market rates? I mean, these are questions, again, we've asked Wapu Sonk. He did not answer them. Now, if he was paying market rates, market rent, he'd tell us. So one would imagine he would. The businessman who is hiring or owns this house through another corporate structure, I put questions to him about his relationship with Kumul. He refused to answer those questions as well. Why? Why are these men so secretive? Now, this is not just a PNG problem. There's an Australian businessman here who may, or certainly has questions to answer as to why he's giving a property he controls to the head of a state-owned enterprise in Papua New Guinea, at the same time he's seeking to win contracts from that same state-owned enterprise. I mean, that's a clear conflict of interest, and it raises, it's very corruption prone. There's a real risk of corruption when such commercial relationships develop. And again, we need the Australian end of this to answer questions, and that's not yet happened. And I hope through programs like this, there will be more pressure on these players to face the music and tell the people of PNG what's going on.
Absolutely. This investigation has certainly sparked public interest and concern. And as you mentioned, we have to start somewhere. We have to talk about it. Why should this story matter to Papua New Guineans and Australians too? What are the broader consequences when state-owned companies operate in secrecy or without independent oversight, particularly across borders?
I mean, ultimately, the people of PNG, especially those suffering in poverty, deserve good hospitals or better hospitals and better healthcare. They deserve better roads. They deserve better education. Kumul Petroleum is ultimately there to improve those outcomes for the people of PNG. When deals like this are struck, it's the ultimate form of crony capitalism. It is rich people getting richer at the expense of poor people who are getting poorer. That's why it's so egregious. That's why it's so disgusting. Now, it's a real privilege that Wapu Sonk has when he is given his title as the CEO, Managing Director of Kumul Petroleum. It's his job to guard the money this entity makes and its power and its influence in PNG for the benefit of the people of Papua New Guinea, not for the benefit of himself. And at the heart of this scandal is the question as to whether these resources, this money, this influence has been abused by one man or several to benefit themselves at the expense of the people of Papua New Guinea. And now I think early days, sure, but the failure of Wapu Sonk to answer some of these questions and the paperwork that we've uncovered, which shows at the very least potential corrupt infrastructure being set up around these companies that could allow Wapu Sonk to profit secretly and improperly. I mean, this all paints a pretty ugly picture. Why does this matter to the people of Australia? We need a healthy, vibrant, democratic Papua New Guinea because it is in the interest of all liberal democracies in the region to be strong, safe, vibrant and prospering. I mean, Australia talks a very big game when it comes to these issues. It needs to put its money where its mouth is, and where there is corruption and where Australians are a party to alleged corruption, suspected corruption, we too must act on our end. The elephant in the room in all this is China. We know China's trying to seed influence across the Pacific. We know a country like Papua New Guinea is a place of great influence contest between Australia and America on the one hand and China on the other. China is throwing around money and influence in Papua New Guinea in unhealthy ways too. Papua New Guinean officials are taking that money and allowing themselves to be influenced in improper ways, I've got no doubt. Australia is seeking to push back at that through its own means. Now, we say in Australia we play healthily, we play in a corruption-free way. The PNG NRL rugby league deal is a great example of this. Tens of millions of dollars of Australian taxpayer money to allow the PNG rugby league to enter the Australian competition. It's a diplomatic, strategic and security coup for Australia and PNG to deepen our relationships and to push China away. That's no doubt that's what's going on. But Australia, in doing so, must make sure it's not playing the same games Australia's accusing China of playing, which is engaging in deals where they know, we know that PNG officials may improperly profit, where we know there'll be the risk of corruption, where we know there'll be the risk of an abuse of power, because ultimately that poisons PNG. It poisons PNG's liberal democracy. It poisons PNG's ability to grow as a country, to stand up against corruption, be it coming from China, be it coming from Australia, or be it involving PNG politicians themselves.
Well said. The Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Honourable James Marape, has stated that he has personally written to the Sydney Morning Herald requesting findings from your investigation. Can you confirm that you have received that correspondence, and will you provide the information requested?
Yeah, but just an hour ago I received an email from the Prime Minister's advisor. I will certainly help. We'll provide the documentation that's been requested. Of course, I'm not a policing agency. I don't have the powers to go and find money trails and check bank accounts. Only the PNG authorities and the Australian authorities can do that. So we can provide some information, but it would be a grave mistake if the PNG government and authorities are simply relying on an Australian journalist to do this investigation, because we can take it so far. Then it's over to you. It's over to the authorities to use their powers to really lift under those rocks that we can't lift under. But certainly we'll be providing that information that's being requested and more, and supporting any investigation that's occurring.
Finally, Nick, I'd like to close by bringing this back to the people, especially for Papua New Guinea, as we mentioned, and Australia. As Papua New Guinea approaches its 50th year of independence, the toll of corruption is undeniable. It has stalled development, weakened institutions, and undermined public trust. What message or words of encouragement would you share with Papua New Guineans who see corruption but they feel powerless to speak out?
I would say stay angry, stay passionate, keep fighting for justice. And it's just vital that we have strong medias in both Australia and Papua New Guinea, strong journalism that is exposing this stuff. That people are continually putting pressure on the powerful to do the right thing. I think a wonderful thing about this story is it blows up on Facebook and other social media channels, and the people of Papua New Guinea, you can tell lots of people are angry, are disgusted, are demanding answers, and I'd encourage them to keep doing so. I myself, as an Australian journalist, I'm passionate about holding the Australians to account who are ripping off PNG, and I will endeavour to keep doing that. And we do that in solidarity with PNG journalists and with the people of PNG who are as concerned at this behaviour as we are.
Thank you, Nick. We stand with you on that in the fight against corruption, both in Papua New Guinea and Australia. Thank you so much for your time, for your courage, and for being the example that you've set, not only in Australia, but across the world. We're truly privileged because your work reminds us of the power of truth and the importance of standing up for what is right, no matter the cost. We thank you so much for your time and for joining us today.
Good to be with you. Thanks.
To our viewers, as Nick reminded us, his job is done. He investigated and he uncovered what he clearly identified as corruption. And he did what any committed journalist should do. He reported the facts and brought them to the public's attention. Nick told us that just an hour before speaking to us, he received an email from the Office of the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, formally requesting the evidence and information from his investigation. And he made it clear he will cooperate fully and provide them with the material that they have asked for. But Nick also made something else very clear. He is not the police. He does not have the power to subpoena individuals. He cannot access private bank accounts linked to the companies in question, PNG Developments Proprietary Limited or otherwise. He does not have the legal or investigative authority to go further. but the Papua New Guinean government does, and the Australian government does too. And that's why now the responsibility shifts. It shifts over to us. And when I say us, I mean all of us, the collective Papua New Guineans who love our country, the Papua New Guineans who don't want to see what God has blessed us with, our land, our resources, our potential, plundered for the benefit of a few. But it should be used for the good of all. The Papua New Guineans who want new schools for our children, the Papua New Guineans who want functioning hospitals for our families, the Papua New Guineans who want a better life, not just for ourselves, but for our children and for generations to come. So what now? It is our job to demand answers, to demand action, to demand accountability. We need to hear clearly from our leaders. Will ICAC investigate this? What will the Prime Minister's office do with the information they have requested? And just as importantly, we need to hear from the board of Kumul Petroleum. What actions will they take to investigate this matter internally? What decisions will be made to restore transparency and public trust? We need this investigated by the right authorities in the right way, with independence, transparency, and public oversight. Because we cannot allow this to become just another story that fades into silence. That's what some politicians are counting on, that we will forget. That the struggles of our daily life will distract us from why we're struggling in the first place. But we must not forget. We must remain focused. We must stay informed, and we must act. So I invite you to join me. Join Coffee with Lewa. Join the movement of right-thinking Papua New Guineans who love this country deeply. Together, let's hold our government accountable, because accountability is not just their duty, it is our right. To our viewers, it's your turn now. Let's take this conversation to the comment section. Let us know your thoughts. We want to hear from you. How do we hold our leaders accountable and ensure that this story does not fade away without action? If you found this conversation meaningful and you want to see more, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share this with your family and your friends to keep this dialogue flowing. We appreciate you and we thank you for being here. We'll see you on the next one right here on Coffee with Lewa.